Jackson trying to escape and run for it, and he's got it and more. Lamar Jackson down the sideline. Will they give it to him? They will. Touchdown, Baltimore.
And with 1:17 left to play on Wild Card Weekend, the Hayes in the barn.
Oh my God! I wish you guys could. I wish we had a camera in here so you could see what we're doing. We're just a bunch of clowns in here.
How much fun is that?
All right, welcome on back to another edition of the Baltimore Beatdown Podcast. It is Thursday, August 26th. My name is Jake Luke, and I'm joined on my screen by Spencer Nathaniel Schultz. How's it going, pal?
Going quite well. We just wrapped up a nice interview with Mr. Dennard Melton, who is a former JMU linebacker, a guy who loves the Baltimore Ravens very much so, and wanted to come on, mix it up. He's coaching some high school football. He's got some knowledge of how to coach linebackers and what to look for, and broke it down in a very simple way so that I just wanted to have him on. I thought he would be able to explain kind of with Patrick Queen and Malik Harrison going into year 2, LJ Fort going down, some of these other younger outside linebackers, what are you looking for as a linebacker? How are you mixing it up, and how much do reps mean and different calls mean, and where are you looking, where are your eyes going, things like that. So Dennard did a great job, comes on, got a couple old school references, made some allusions to some other interesting situations around the NFL and things like that. So that was a lot of fun. We appreciate him coming on, and that's going to be the interview for today's episode.
Yeah, it was. It was a fun chat. He's a guy who, if you're on the Ravens Twitter sphere, you might be familiar with him and his work and kind of his takes that he puts out there. And yeah, he is a defensive expert, a linebacking guru. I threw the name out there. I call a lot of people a guru, and I think he maybe took a little bit of umbrage to that. I don't know if he wants that title, but we gave it to him anyway. So he's taking it, and I think the evidence bore itself out, because it was probably about a 45-minute chat, maybe even a little bit longer, just about all things linebacker and the Ravens linebackers. I learned a lot. I could probably listen to you talk like X's and O's with like another X's and O's guy for like hours. So we got to like get some sort of a podcast mini series going where we just get you and like some sort of Ted Nguyen-esque figures up against a chalkboard and just turn that into a podcast.
Yeah, I didn't bring my best stuff for Ted. Hopefully we can get him on sometime soon. It was he's a guy that I kind of look up to a little bit, so I was just kind of picking his brain. Didn't get as much into it. Also said one of the dumbest things I've probably said. I was like, oh yeah, I can't even remember who's the Raiders offensive coordinator. I was like, yeah, he's yeah. I was like, yeah, he's one of the most unheralded offensive coordinators in the NFL. Like, oh yeah, and Ted was like, yeah, it's John Gruden's offense, and I was like, yeah, you're right about that. So yeah, but it was a lot of fun talking about, the way players develop over time and what to expect and setting some expectations. And hey, I mean, at this point, LJ Fort goes down, Malik Harrison, and I don't know if we've even recorded since LJ Fort tore. Yeah, we haven't. LJ Fort tears his ACL against the Carolina Panthers. Very unfortunate. This has always been a huge LJ Fort podcast. I thought that it was one of the most insanely timely and valuable signings that I can remember for a street free agent in the middle of the year to come on, provide so much confidence, and calm down a Ravens linebacking core in 2019 that was, they were a mess. And you got Peanut Owasso and Kenny Young in there. You bring in Josh Bynes, you bring in LJ Fort, and those two dudes just figured it out. And you listen to Patrick Queen, you listen to Malik Harrison talk about Fort and what he's done for them, and how those guys are going to be kind of stepping out from underneath of his wings and going off and being the leaders of this defense. And to me, at the end of the day, and that's been one of the most interesting storylines to me through 2 preseason games. We haven't talked about it much, but Patrick Queen's taken a lot of reps. Malik Harrison's taken a lot of reps. And those guys look like some dudes with bad intentions. They're playing more confidently. Are they going to be, all-pro guys this year? I don't think so. I don't think you're going to see Patrick Queen be a top 5 linebacker in the NFL this year. Hey, maybe next year. But I think we're going to see a hell of a lot more dynamic football player consistently than we saw last year. And if that's the case, I think this Ravens defense, maybe even I was underestimating them a couple months ago, because Patrick Queen looks confident. And this is my fan take on him. I don't know if there's a player on the Ravens roster that will benefit more from hearing the crowd roar emotionally than Patrick Queen. That dude fucking loves to hear the roar of the crowd. He comes from Death Valley, LSU. Even in these preseason games, he just seems a little bit different playing in front of a crowd. I think that's going to be an underrated little X factor for him. I can just tell in his energy when he makes one play, he is like and one street ball, freaking whatever the hell the PS2 game was called back in the day. Why can't I think of it? NBA Street. NBA Street. The dude, I mean, he makes two plays. He is on fire. I feel like the rest of the quarter, maybe even the rest of the game. If he makes two plays pretty close to each other, he becomes like an absolute game breaker. And I think we've seen a little glimpse of that this preseason. Is he going to get off blocks really well? I don't know. But you got Malik Harrison who's going to do that really well. They got a nice yin and a yang there, and I'm excited to watch these linebackers in year 2. So it was a lot of fun to have Dennard on to talk about it.
Yeah, it was. He did a great job, and we didn't really touch on LJ Fort with him too much, obviously, but does suck to lose him for the year. Sneaky friend of the show, LJ Fort. I don't think we ever had him on, but I think there's been some communication made, some good social media inroads. So best wishes out to him, and hope he has a speedy recovery. And his, the saga with his contract is resolved. There was that weird thing where he got released, and then he came back, and that whole thing. So it's been a weird offseason for him, but hopefully he'll be able to come back from this injury fit and firing. But yeah, it does kind of put Queen and Harrison into the spotlight that I think one way or the other they were going to be put into, and the Ravens were going to want them to be put into because they want to find out what they had. And like we talked about with Dennard, like it's no sure thing one way or the other that they're going to sink or they're going to swim, but they're going to get a look at that now, and it also maybe puts a little bit of a wrench into what they want to do with the rest of their linebackers. We've talked some 53-man projections. I think we've both written up like different versions of our own up to this point. So it's kind of throws an interesting wrench into the roster, the final 53-man roster projections.
Yeah, it opens up a spot, and hey, that spot's probably most likely just going to go to Christian Welch, who's played okay. Chris Board there. Dennard mentions maybe bringing in a veteran, I think is a smart idea, so that if you do see Harrison or Queen miss time, you've got somebody that you're confident, like Dennard said, that can play the run, and you don't have to think about it or worry about it. So wouldn't be a shocking move to see the Ravens go outside, especially after these roster cutdowns of 53, go find a veteran linebacker that gets cut. And Eric DeCosta's already gone to that well once, so would not be surprised to see him go to it again. But yeah, this preseason has been, I don't know, it's been a weird one, I think kind of take-wise, just because we didn't have one last year. And I think that has sort of caused this sensational hyperbole over, of course, there's all these rookie quarterbacks that are playing, and Lamar Jackson had COVID and he's not playing. And, just in the Ravens standpoint, and I think everybody kind of forgets what preseason is to an extent, just because of the amnesia of the last year and maybe not having one. And everybody's so excited for football and for fans to be able to go back to stadiums. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's special teams reps, and it's seeing which bubble guys can execute some basic assignments and which guys you might want to keep. So there's a lot of takes about kind of the high-end players that are looking great and things like that. But at the end of the day, these are scrimmages, and it is what it is. You could really not watch the entire preseason at the end of the day as a fan and wake up.
I think I would say with the rookie quarterbacks, I think you can see the traits sometimes with the preseason, which is one thing that I do enjoy about watching the rookies like Justin Fields. Like I think some of the stuff we're seeing from him is going to translate. It's something we saw happen with Baker Mayfield actually, to an extent. Like you see Baker Mayfield like take 3 drives in the preseason. It's like, oh, okay, it's he might not be like the greatest quarterback we've ever seen, but it's going to work with this guy.
He's going to throw a tight ass spiral hard and give
Good
guys
movement.
chances to
Yeah.
make plays. Yeah. The athleticism.
Yeah, it's
The
not
movement skill, the athleticism, feel for the game, those kinds of things, definitely. But at the end of the day, I mean, we'll talk about it, and we're going to, and I love it. I've watched every game. I've watched both of these games 3 times now.
Sorry to cut you off again, but it's just it's totally lacked juice this year for the Ravens, like particularly with no Jackson playing, and like it's just been a weird camp. There's just been other storylines dominating with the Bateman injury, all these other injuries they're dealing with. It's not even a real preseason for them. They haven't had a chance to play starters. I don't know to what extent they would have anyway. You got to think Harbaugh's heroes would be out there getting their time if everyone were healthy and fit and ready to go, but they're not. And so that's kind of the storyline right now. They've kept the streak going. That's weirdly like dividing some opinions in some ways, which, I find that preposterous, one way and the other. We have our fun.
It's funny, and it's a cool thing to do, and it's funny.
It is. Yeah. And it's like, I think, I don't know, like you've got people like throwing out stuff that like it's not important at all. It's like, okay, well, that's probably not totally true. I mean, it's like not really important either. So it's just kind of whatever. It's just a funny thing. It's a funny Harbaugh thing. And it's Harbaugh's heroes, man. It's his time of year right now.
It is. And I touched on that in a little article. And I don't think, I think from a fan perspective, if you were in a coma for a month and you woke up in the regular season, you missed the preseason, it's not the end of the world there. You're not missing, anything too extravagant aside from maybe some injuries and a guy who came on to make the roster and maybe makes a contribution for you at some point. But at the same time, since this streak started in 2015, the Ravens have gone 5-0. And again, there was no preseason last year, but I'm going to go ahead and assume they would probably have won those games. Maybe, maybe not, whatever. But the Ravens are 5-0 in regular season openers. They have won those 5 games by a combined 151 points. The point differential is plus 151. The first one was a 6-point win over the Bills. So that means that the last 4 years, the Ravens have outscored their week 1 opponents by 145 freaking points. You can't tell me that the attitude that John Harbaugh and this Ravens team has with a little bit of killer instinct at the end of games and the intensity that they're bringing off the bat it can't just be a coincidental. It can't just be completely unrelated. There's no relation to that. They fucking dominate in week 1 and they haven't lost a preseason game in 5 years.
And even if it is just like, 50 yards gained or lost on special teams hustle, like, getting down and pinning a ball or like, better
making the tackle on a punt.
Yeah, exactly. Making a tackle, trapping the ball, doing that kind of stuff on special teams, even if it is like the third running back who barely made the team, is just like super tuned up and like ready to roll, whether that's going to be somebody like Tylan Williams this year, whether it's like the, second tight end that is all jacked up from playing the entire preseason and then getting in and being really effective in week 1, whether it's like ex-linebacker that, got all the special team snaps and preseason and is doing so in the regular season now, and that's translating to his play on defense. It's like it's a total mentality thing, and it is one of those things that we try to avoid being sports talk radio guy on here, but it is kind of one of those cultural things there where you can't quantify it, but you probably wouldn't be, at least in my opinion, seen as especially stupid for thinking that some of that stuff is pretty real and tangible.
For sure. It's, having the guys at the bottom of the roster sharp. It's a 1 through 53 coming out in week 1, sharp, prepared, executing, firing on all cylinders. And I think that is something that can be overlooked. So at the end of the day, it is preseason, it is scrimmages. They do not count, but I think there is a little bit of tangible fever that you can get out of a John Harbaugh team going into week 1. They just seem to be a little bit more physical than their opponent. They seem to execute a little better in week 1 and just be prepared. So that kind of brings us into, we're 2 weeks in. We haven't really touched on preseason a ton. There's other shows. You guys can go listen to, 47 minutes of offensive line debating the 8th, 9th, and 10th guy on the offensive line, things like that. But at the end of the day, for me right now, just doing a quick whip around of all of it, and we'll talk about it a little bit. I'm just going to lay them out there. To me, it feels like you're looking at offense. You're looking at the back end of the offensive line. And, it's Macari, it's Schofield, it's the Benz, and Tristan Colon. And you just got to look at it and say, hey, which gives us the best second team? Then you're talking Tylan Williams, who has been incredible. We'll get into that. And Justice Hill, who has been injured. What's going to go on there? You're looking at Ben Mason, who's a draft pick, who seems like, the Ravens probably absolutely adore him, which is why they drafted him in the 5th round, and no one else did. Versus Josh Oliver versus, an Eric Tomlinson, who feels unlikely to make the team. Quarterback is all locked up. We'll see what happens with McSizzle, with Tracy Unitas, but, Huntley's probably going to be the backup week 1. And then the receiver room, everybody's just fucking hurt. So we didn't really get to have some big Miles Boykin showdown.
Yeah, and it's tough with the receiver room too, because we've talked about this. Like Huntley, like he's going to be the QB2, and that's fine. But like he's looked rough at times, and especially like getting reps for these wide receivers, he's not throwing with a ton of touch out there, so it's kind of tough. Like Duvernay's getting a lot of run, is like probably the de facto number 1 out there, and they're doing a lot of different stuff with, not a lot of different stuff. It's preseason, but he's getting some orbit motions and stuff like that, and he's getting on the move. So to the point about guys being ready, I think Duvernay is going to be ready to roll for week 1, which is a nice feeling. But like it's tough for him when he's kind of a weirdly built player for a guy like Huntley, where Huntley's going to have trouble finding the strike zone with him a little bit. I think that's kind of shown through in some of the ways that he's tried to get him the ball. Whereas a guy like Josh Oliver, I think is going to be definitely tuned up and ready to go. He looked really good against the Panthers. I think he's kind of that perfect big body target. He's kind of diet Mark Andrews out there in some ways, in my opinion. So really like what I've seen from him, but it's just kind of a wash with the rest of this offense. I mean, Williams, to your point, looked awesome. He had the great touchdown, which looked like, speaking of the traits, like that's that balance, staying on your feet, knows for the where the goal line is and reaching that ball out. That's a trait that you can see. Like that's, some guys
contact balance. He has it.
Exactly. Some guys have that. Some guys don't. McCrary looked pretty good too. Like he's probably not going to be on the 53. I don't think he has much of a chance at all, but you never know with these running backs. Sometimes they hang on to guys like that, and maybe he'll be on the practice squad.
Williams last year was put on the practice squad. We didn't see him in preseason, so we don't know. There was the one scrimmage, and he looked good, the team scrimmage, but then they developed him, and he looked sharp as hell. McCrary has long speed. I think he's a developmental running back that has potential. Yeah,
exactly. So he looked good. I mean, it's just there's a lot of good stuff on the fringes of the roster, which I think is down to 80 at this point. So yeah, it's definitely been interesting to watch, but it kind of has lacked that juice. And with everyone being hurt as far as the starters go, I think maybe you hope for on Saturday night, you hope for like maybe a clean series or two from Lamar Jackson. If that kind of put him away, take stonk of what you have, and wait out that bye week for the regular season, and hope you can get everyone back that you need healthy. Hollywood Brown, Sammy Watkins, sneaky hurt as well. I mean, Kevin Zeitler, you need these guys back. Like Bateman's not going to be there, but like these other guys are going to have to be ready to go for week one. And if that means shutting a lot of it down and just kind of, getting through this third preseason game against Washington healthy, then do that, because it's been a rough look health-wise, I think. And like for all the people that are saying like, oh man, they really need to do something. They need to look at like what they're doing with their training. Like we've had this discussion before. They hire Saunders and whoever else, but like even that, I don't even think that like corresponds. Like they've had unlucky years and they've had lucky years, and that's just kind of how it goes with football, I think.
No one knows a player's body better than themselves, and I think I talked about it on this podcast. I went for a run and I listened to, or maybe I was walking the dogs and I listened to Steve Smith on a podcast, and it's blanking to me which one it was, but Steve Smith had something that I just found that was so on point for what it means to be a true professional athlete. And it's not just a football player. Steve Smith said that over the first couple of years, he was a smaller guy. So he wanted to lift weights. He wanted to deadlift. He wanted to bench. He wanted to squat. He wanted to gain muscle. He wanted to get up to 200 pounds and over so that he could prove he could take a beating and all that good stuff. And he found out that he was too big. He found out he was too muscle bound. His hamstrings couldn't hold up. He said every time he went over 202 pounds, his hamstrings would tear. And he missed time because of it. And then he found that when he went on the lighter side to have flexibility under, 192, 193 pounds, he couldn't sustain. He couldn't endure the beating. He couldn't endure the hits. So he basically stayed healthy for like I might be wrong here. He might have had an injury later than I believe, but I think it was at least like a 5 or 6 year stretch of healthy football. And he said he was exactly between 195 and 198 pounds that entire time. And that just goes to show that nobody knows a player's body better than themselves. If your hips are tight, you feel it. If you're too heavy and you feel groggy, you feel it. You are the master of your own domain. You are the keeper of your body. You're a pro. You're getting paid a one metric shitload of money so that you can have resources to invest into your body and keep yourself in tip-top shape. And, you can blame the coaches. You can blame these guys. I mean, the coaches are all experts. The trainers are all experts. All these guys are experts. The Ravens have had a very clean bill of health the last couple of years. At the end of the day, who pushes it too hard? You do. You push it too hard. Sammy Watkins has missed a week. What did Sammy Watkins say when he signed in Baltimore? That he goes too hard.
I work too hard. I care too much. And sometimes I get too invested in my job.
Bingo. Exactly. The classic interview questions. Sammy Watkins says he goes too hard. Well, surprise, surprise. Sammy Watkins very quietly, when was the last time he practiced? A week ago, 10 days ago. He's been out. Marquise Brown is out. Rashad Bateman's out. Miles Boykin's out. Deion Kane is out. James Prochet's been out. I mean, Prochet's been healthy the entire camp, so I'm not including him. He's already back at practice. He's fine. He had cramps or something.
I will say I think it's shitty that this spelled the end for Miles Boykin effectively, I think. Like he didn't even get a chance to make the roster this year, I think. And like maybe they'll keep him, but it doesn't seem like that's going to happen. And he might
be on PUP. He might be put on PUP.
Yeah, maybe. And like as a relative, like I wouldn't call myself a total Boykin apologist, but I've been a relative Boykin apologist even like this past year when things have been pretty rough for him. I just think that's unfortunate. And like that's kind of emblematic of where they're at with the wide receiver room right now, that a guy's career has effectively ended here because he was unhealthy. And like some of these other guys, like you got Bateman hoping to get his career off to a good start. And that's been put on delay here. So let's figure this out, wide receivers. Come on.
Yeah. So it's been, and again, that's kind of been the dominating storyline, that they haven't been there. They haven't had the successful camp. And it's kind of ironic because 2019, I mean, they were healthy. They lose Tavon Young. It is what it is. I think they have Jimmy Smith go down early that year in the Miami game. I think he breaks an ankle, but that was after camp had ended and after the preseason. They made it through. They had this awesome training camp. You and I were there for a good bit of it, and they're, cooking. There's all this buzz. There's all this energy and emotion. And right now, I mean, Lamar misses 10 days. That is what it is. That's well in the rear view at this point. And these receivers are all out. The offensive line just now, like the last couple of days, has been able to trot out. And, Stanley comes back. That is great, fantastic, amazing news that Ronnie Stanley is a full participant in practice. With 3 weeks to go, it's plenty of time to get reps in, figure it out a little bit. Is it going to take time to knock the rust off? Probably. Is he going to be an all-pro in week 1? I don't think so. But he's probably going to get better as the year goes on. That's why I think this whole Joe Burrow shit going on in Cincinnati, he's having this awful training camp. Yeah, well, the guy just tore his knee. I mean, Matt Skura last year, he talked about it. He tore his knee. Does he play great? No, but he talked about how he's not going to play great. He's not fully healthy. He just recovered from major surgery that you're going to feel the rest of your life. So it is what it is at this point. But I think the silver lining is that the defense seems lights out. I think they're going to be a unit that can carry the Ravens. And hey, the Chiefs, we've been dreading that, can of whoop ass for quite some time. Maybe they surprise us. Probably not. I'm going to bet against the Ravens just because I'm sick and tired of them pissing me off against the Chiefs. But defense looks fast. Defense looks like they hit. Defense looks like they're smart.
Yeah, I mean, Deshaun Elliott all over the freaking field in both games. He's looked awesome. Chuck Clark looked good too as well. Very solid. I think he might have had the forced fumble in the first game, maybe.
He stuck Chuba Hubbard and knocked the ball out. Carolina, week 2.
Yeah, exactly. So Chuck Clark with that in the second game. Apologies there. But yeah, they have looked good. Always getting all these different looks and really impressing people. And it's just
Dalen Hayes is repetitively dipping underneath the tackles, getting quarterback hits.
Yeah, he had a sack. I mean, and Christian Welch looking pretty good to the point about him kind of being that third guy now in the line. So defense is going to be fine. They're going to be very solid. And like honestly, I think the offense is going to be okay. They just need to get healthy. Like they
just need to hand Gus Edwards the ball.
Yeah. Speaking of like just absolute badasses, Gus Edwards is like, he looks so fucking good.
Demigod.
He's always looked good, but like there's a different level with that guy this year.
He got paid and he's like even angrier. He's like, I got that angry bag I'm going to show. But he's fully committed. He's all in. Gus Edwards looks, even in practice, he looks fantastic. In preseason games, he looks fantastic. He looked fantastic last year. The dude's fantastic. Mr. Fantastic Gusto.
Yeah, we were talking about this a little bit in the group chat. It's like I remember him getting like I don't know if I'd say criticized, but like one of his drawbacks when he first got here was that he ran a little bit too upright, but like he kind of still does that. But then like his legs are long as shit. So it's like he's upright and like stretching his legs all the way out. It feels like he runs 7 yards in like 2 steps and it's just like shedding blockers all the way.
He is so lethal with his shoulder pads and with his stiff arm and his just ability to position himself to the point of impact to hit through defenders and embrace contact and use it against them. It is ridiculous. I think he is J.K. Dobbins is filthy in his own right, but man, I want to see Gus Edwards get 200 carries this year. Bad. I just want to see from a fan perspective what Gus Edwards can do on a heavy workload and how defense is managed to hit that man throughout 4 quarters. He is so lean. He looks so light. And we don't know what his weight is. He's listed at 240. For all we know, he's 225. The amount of just sheer force that he delivers upon impact right now. Jeremy Chin, who was, got defensive rookie of the year votes last year, tried to go tackle him in space, just fucking preschooler running up and hitting him in the legs. Ridiculous. I think his contact balance is better. I think he's lighter on his feet. I think he's going to be more fluid in the pass game. He looks so lean, so fast, still so powerful. Gus Edwards stonks are up. I'm getting him in fantasy. I'm going to be taking him in fantasy drafts.
Got a little Madden franchise video coming your way next week to the YouTube page. Gus Edwards, keep an eye out for him.
Let's go, baby. Let's go. The Gus bus. He has the chain on. Good God.
That chain was sick. So stonks are all the way up on Gus. He's one thing that, and we were in the group chat with Voss earlier tonight, and he's a little down in the dumps right now, and he was getting me in a little bit of a bad mood. And listen, there have been some things going on in the professional sphere that have had me a little in a weird place, and all this other stuff. Some of it brings you down at times. But just thinking about Gus, the bus, it just brings me all the way back up. And you know what? It's okay. It was my birthday the other day, so here we are. We're talking Gus. I'm a 26-year-old man. Things are okay. Thank you, Gus. That's all I'm saying.
Thank you, Gus. All right, so let's do it. Let's go positive. Let's go full positive. We talked about the bad stuff, the injuries, yada, yada, yada. Here's what I'm excited about. I'm excited about these safeties. Nigel Warrior, I just like the way the man hits. I like that he's been playing corner, and they seem to like him in safety. Darius Washington, he's kind of the same size as Tavon Young. When you see him standing next to each other, it's not a terrible difference. He's been sticky as hell. He's making plays. Geno Stone, who was like Mike Renner from PFF, had like a second round grade on him or something. Absolutely loved him. I saw it too. Goes in the 7th round. Dude's playing fast. Dude's playing hard. Chris Westry, another back end DB player. The Ravens have depth. Brandon Stevens has looked decently sharp. I think he's played. Let me see. I have it pulled up right around here. He has been completely versatile. So Brandon Stevens has 36 snaps in the slot, 15 snaps as the high safety, 11 snaps in the box so far. So he's moving all around. He is exciting versatility-wise, potential-wise as a neophyte at the position. I'm excited about those guys. I am excited about Josh Oliver. I'm pumped to see the safety duo and this linebacker duo in kind of year 2 of having, and not that Malik Harrison played a ton last year, but having Harrison, Queen, Elliott, and Clark, 4 dudes who can run, hit, and make plays. So all good things in those aspects. Been a lot of negativity, but hey, season's coming. Preseason football almost over. We don't have to hear about Michael Schofield and Ben Bredesen and all these guys because they're not really going to matter in week 1. And all this stuff is going to go by the wayside.
Those guys have been awesome. Josh Oliver looked really good. And I think that was kind of to everyone's point. I think kind of what I was expecting. Sort of, we mentioned the Mark Andrews sort of quasi comparisons. He looked like that. They were moving him around a little bit. They were lining him up at fullback and then doing sort of that motion across the center, and like they would run that with him. They would fake a read option or like whatever they would do out of the pistol there, and then they would throw it to him, and then they would actually run the run play, and he would get in the mix on the in the blocking side of things. So he was fun to watch. He was all over the place and looked really good. He had the fumble, which is I think that's kind of whatever for a tight end, especially he got peanut punched, so it's kind of another whatever thing. But Tylan Wallace too, man. Almost made a play in the first preseason game. Comes back, he makes 2 plays in a row down the right sideline, which is he basically lived at the sideline in college at times and made a lot of his flashy highlight plays there. But even more so than just like the plays that he would make in college where he would just kind of moss guys. And it's like, okay, like I think he'll be good. I don't know how much all of that is going to translate. It was a little bit of that, but it was also sort of awareness, hands, tracking the ball, and kind of tight roping the sideline, which I think are transferable skills and are not fluky at all. So I think Tylan Wallace was a fun watch against the Panthers. He's another sort of check for me. So he's looked good. I think he's probably going to slot in at the 6 wide receiver spot. So he's probably not going to see a ton of time right out of the gate, but it just feels like a deeper wide receiver core. Like it doesn't look like a bunch of jabronis out there. Like in another year, like maybe a Jalen Moore or whoever it might be, maybe you're talking about that guy as a 6 wide receiver. If you're talking about Tylan Wallace or James Prochet, I'm in a much better place with the wide receiver position than I'm ever used to being with this team.
At this point, the receivers who have probably caught the most passes from Lamar Jackson are Tylan Wallace and Devin Duvernay this offseason, this training camp. So I was doing some numbers and running through some things, just perimeter Ravens pass offense, and it was so much worse than I thought it was. My article, you can go check it out. Pass game blues. The Ravens need their top receivers healthy to move forward. But I basically mentioned how Tylan Wallace is one of the 4 options that the Ravens have to take boundary reps that are healthy. It's Marquise Brown, who had like 70% of the Ravens' yards from outside alignments receiving wise last year. Sammy Watkins, who had 20-ish receptions each of the last 2 years from outside alignments. Rashad Bateman, who had groin surgery. Like, all these guys are out, and it's just Tylan Wallace. So at this point, you got to think, Rashad Bateman misses week 1, and let's say, Hollywood Brown is not a full go to go play 50 snaps or 40 snaps. Who's going to be the boundary receiver? Tylan fucking Wallace is, and Devin Duvernay is going to play that Z. So what was really cool, we saw Tyler Huntley, probably maybe the best like in rhythm play we've seen over the last 2 weeks was Tyler Huntley under center, take a 5-step drop like it's Joe Flacco in 2008 and hit Tylan Wallace on a little speed out. And Tylan Wallace went up and got the ball. He could have maybe just fingertipped it and half-assed it. No, he fucking laid out, grabbed the ball, and made sure that he caught it, got by the marker, got the first down. So he's, has an acrobatic side to him. He didn't have a 40-inch vertical or anything like that. He wasn't some elite athlete, but hey, you put the lights on, you put the pads on, you put a defense in front of him, started making some plays, and he looks the part. And, there's been this enigma around James Prochet as we talk about, the irony of us having the Jeremy Butler Memorial Studio that Jake's in right now is that you can light up the preseason, you can light up the practice field, and whatever you want to do. But guess what? Might not mean shit. Miles Boykin looked like he could have been a whatever. What do you want to call him? Martavis Bryant or fucking Calvin Johnson. You can call him whatever you want in the preseason of 2019. We watched him in practice. Jake and I were like looking at each other with our jaws dropped as he's skying over Jimmy Smith and ripping the ball out of the air. And guy hasn't had, a clean tenure. Smoke Mizell, Michael Campanaro, can go back and back and back. James Prochet can light it up on the practice field, but we haven't seen it yet. So receivers look most impressive really is Tylan Wallace, and he's only had a couple targets. You mentioned that one, Jake, that he had against Washington where the ball was just a little too far beyond his reach, but had great body control. If the ball's 2 inches closer, he could probably toe tap that back foot. And I don't know.
And he did have he had the one hit him in the nuts in the end zone.
Groin shot.
The groin shot from Huntley, which was a great throw by Huntley, probably his best all preseason and training camp. But yeah, it was unfortunate to see him drop that, but he's a guy who hauls that in game action. He caught that pass probably, I don't know how many times in college, but it was probably a lot. So I'm counting on him to definitely be able to do that when the lights come on, and I think he will.
Got great body control. He plays like an alpha. He sheds a tackle. If you come weak, he's going to run through it. He's not looking to step out of bounds. He's looking to put his foot in the ground, get upfield, and almost, had a really long touchdown that probably would have taken over the entire internet if someone didn't. He hit a nice little high step in the open field. I don't know if you saw that right before he got tackled. If he didn't have someone coming from behind him, he was going to make that dude miss or run through him into the end zone like he was back in freaking Oklahoma State, shooting them cowboy pistols, those magnums left and right. Giddy up, mother truckers. I think Tylan Wallace could very well have a 15, 20 snap role in week 1 is a long-winded way of saying that. And he's looked good, man. So things we're excited about. You mentioned Josh Oliver. Some people are being weird about Josh Oliver. Looks like the best tight end that's not named Mark Andrews, Nick Boyle, or Hayden Hurst that I've seen in 3-4 years. Yeah,
he's a legitimate receiving threat. Nothing against Tomlinson, who's a good blocker, and some of these other guys. They're signing Luke Wilson off the street, which is no offense to Luke Wilson, he should never be put in that spot.
Wow.
Yeah. Gonna drop this ball in the back of the end zone against the Steelers.
My boss's daughter.
Yeah. Oh wow.
She's only 17.
Is this a 2021 appropriate joke? No, it isn't. But that's okay because it's 20 years ago. But yeah, so
that's what I was thinking as I was saying it.
Yeah, it's that's kind of, that one doesn't really hold up too much, but otherwise great movie, old school. Check it out. But yeah, Josh Oliver. I mean, he's
not Luke Wilson.
No, he's not. He was a 3rd round pick at tight end for a reason, and it didn't work out with the Jags for a couple different, I don't know if I'd call them fluke injuries necessarily, but a couple injuries that sideline you for a year, and all of a sudden you forget real quick what a guy can be or what you thought he should be. And, sometimes exchange of scenery is the best thing. So Jag ship him off for essentially a bag of balls. They sign Tim Tebow to replace him. We all saw how that worked out. And now he's a legit option. Like, talk about the traits. Like I've been saying, he tracks it. He uses his hands to catch the ball. He runs crisp, clean routes. He uses his body to shield the ball against these smaller defenders that he's going up against. Like, he's a unit, dude. He reminds me of Scarf. Remember when we would drool over Charles Scarf back in the day, speaking of another preseason hero? He reminds me of that, but like, he's probably actually going to be competent and have a role in the offense this year.
And Huntley has not been able to push the ball downfield at all. The offensive line play has been shoddy. So, Huntley's not exactly stepping up in the pocket and pushing the ball 18 yards up the seam.
That's the thing about Huntley. Like, his throwing the ball 100 miles an hour on every single play, like regardless of the depth of target. Like, if he's thrown to a guy 7 feet away from him, he's just ripping the ball in there. And like, some of these guys like Duvernay struggled with it a little bit. I think some of these other guys struggled with it. Oliver really didn't. Like, he had a couple balls that came in real hot at him, but he's making these catches. So he had one on 3rd and long, I think, falls forward for the first down. So he's a tough SOC.
He had like 3 or 4 first downs, at least 3 in Carolina.
Yeah, I think, he did. And I think Andrews is going to be the show pony, and he's going to be the workhorse, I think, kind of going underneath. Like, I think he's going to have a legitimate role in this offense.
And it's kind of like, it says to me, like, all right, you really want to re-sign Andrews or extend him. They're gonna. I'd be shocked if they didn't. And so you'd kind of like to have an insurance policy when your offense is built around a certain dude, and you kind of want to be able to have someone that can replicate it in any way, even if it's 50%, 80% of it, whatever. The 80-20 rule, as Ozzy likes to say. So have the 80-20 guy behind Andrews. That way you've got an insurance policy as well as a contributor. And the thing that I like most about Oliver is just how much he fights after the catch. I didn't anticipate that kind of physicality to lower the shoulder, to run through contact and hunt the first down marker. So those have been fun. But yeah, I mean, receivers haven't, and I'm not saying it's a full indictment on Tyler Huntley, whatever. I don't even really care that much, but to make it that, but there just haven't been a lot of downfield targets. And if they are, they're overthrown. So,
and part of that's the offensive line too. Like, he hasn't had a ton of time to really hang in there and make the throws downfield. But yeah, so it's Tylan Wallace and Josh Oliver, definitely big time bright spot. Speaking of Tylan Wallace, also wanted to throw in one of the absolute most prolific pitchmen the Ravens have ever drafted. He's already getting the Zaxby sponsorships. He's got an Avail sponsorship, which I don't know if that's like some sort of Uber thing, but he's got a photo op with Avail outside the castle, which you can see there. So he's killing it, man. He's got all the sponsorships going on. It kind of makes me wonder though, if, he had been, just a little bit younger and he had gotten a chance to take advantage of the NIL sponsorships, because you got to think him and Gundy would be really working some things out back in Stillwater.
Hell yeah, brother. Hell yeah, they would. So yeah, I mean, a couple things to be excited about. Again, Tyson Williams, to me, you can't let him go. Can't let him go. I think it would be a mistake. You get this UDFA guy who's cheap. You have, Justice Hill, who's giving you some speed, some receiving prowess, some special teams play. He's got an ankle right now. Tyson Williams looks sharp in pass pro. He looks sharp as a receiver. He splits out wide as the end man on the boundary on the right side, runs a quick hitch. Huntley hits him. He immediately gets hit, holds onto the ball. Like, the dude is made of preseason magic right now, but it looks like you said there's traits that you can just see. He can jump cut. He has vision. He can set up second level defenders, all these things. So he has been a definite bright spot. The one guy I will say that I think I've fallen off on a little bit is Chris Westry. And if there's a player that I want to try to prop up Corey Vedvik style and swing his ass for another player, like a third tackle or a fourth tackle or a draft pick, it is Chris Westry. He's got traits. I like him as a developmental player. I don't really trust him to be in game and process and play against top receivers on other teams that are starting in regular season games and give you competent play. But he has the traits too. If you can squeeze him on the practice squad, that'd be great. But I think there's a 0% chance that if you cut him, he makes it through waivers. So he's the guy I would like to see flipped if possible.
Orioles won.
Let's go. There we go. Not the longest losing streak.
No one beats the Baltimore Orioles 20 times in a row. But yeah, shout out to Vitas Garolitis. But yeah, I think I'm glad we were able to take it on this positive turn. And I think some of the I think some of the offensive linemen have looked solid too. I don't know if that's anything we touched on quite yet, but I mean, like, you got Tristan Colon getting in there at times, I think, and Macari getting some of his reps at tackle as he was wont to do last season. They do seem to like him there. So yeah, the offense, like, it's not great necessarily, but they're kind of playing with one hand tied behind their back. And I do like some of the pieces. So defense, great. Offense, kind of in a holding pattern, but there's some stuff to like. So I'm glad we were able to touch on all that.
Right on. And I mean, big weekend for Jalen Ferguson, Westry, those DBs, all those guys right now. The offensive line play, I mean, hey, I am basically I'm out on the streets. I am a freaking all 22 orphan right now, and I don't have a ton to say about the offensive line.
What did you call yourself, a useless data pig?
I'm a useless data pig right now. I'm deep in the freaking trenches of SIS Data Hub, looking up stupid stuff that I can't find. And that I can't like pontificate what I want, and I have no film to go on. I'm watching TV broadcasts, and I'm basically like the freaking Dolphins offensive line coach, just snorting up TV broadcasts late at night, making take quakes and trying to trigger my mind and see what's going on and how Ben Powers looks when I can't actually see and shit like that. And so I'm just abstaining from the offensive line takes. I don't know, whatever.
I'm doing the same thing, man. I'm starting to do some week 1 work, diving in and watching some Raiders games. And let me tell you, the TV broadcast is not great.
Not great, especially when, I'm sorry to say it. Sorry if this offends anyone. Same time, not really, but the WBAL broadcast has no replays. There's like one every 15 plays. I can't see anything. They do these interviews of like random players for 3.5 minutes. And so I'm looking at a frame within a frame on my laptop or on my monitor, and I can't see anything. So, please, for my family, for my sanity, for my twisted brain, give us back
I watched
end zone views.
I watched the Panthers copy the other day. I can confirm it is the exact same with other teams.
Yeah. It's these local stations.
These local stations are not equipped for a full NFL telecast.
God bless their souls. God bless WBAL. Love them for what they do. Great, support local.
Friend of the program.
Friend of the program. Love them to death. But I can't see shit, and it's ruining my life. So please get it back for the regular season. Please,
when is it supposed to come back? They said regular season, but I remember last year, didn't they go like 2 weeks into the regular season before it came back?
No. That did not happen like that last year. I was cutting up Browns week 1 like a goddamn.
It might have been the year before, but if I remember correctly, there was literally, we got into, I think, at least 1 week, and there still was no all 22.
It might have been 2019.
Freaking out, yeah. It might have been.
But oh god, big yawn. But yeah, so just please. They said it might be back for the regular season. We've got nothing. My heart, my soul, I am dead inside. I want to make cut-ups. I want to make good stuff. I was able, when they're down by the end zone, you can do a little bit of work, but at the end of the day, long story short, I don't know what's happening with the offensive line because I can't see it. And not to shit on some people that I really like, sorry, Cole Jackson, and he's the first one to tell you how much he's struggling, but you really can't see what's going on. And you can pretend and you can say that's crap and whatever, but if you can't tell if a guy got tripped or got pancaked or it's a mess.
You can't see the safeties.
No, you have no clue what the safeties are doing. You have no clue what the coverage is, and you have no clue what the receivers are doing downfield. You don't know what the routes are. You can't see what the quarterback could have done or is looking at or what the concept was and make assumptions. Not that I know all of them or that anyone does, and anyone who tells you that they do is a little bit too full of themselves. But hey, and that's why we have this interview we're coming up to. We're winding down here. Dennard, the first thing, as Jake mentioned when we logged on to this podcast, is that Jake's like, a guru of linebacker play. He's like, hey, man, I'm no guru. And it's like Jake even gets in. You'll hear it, but, if you say you know everything, then you're a jackass, long story short. If you're always confident in everything that you ever say, especially about NFL football, as someone who has never worked in the NFL or been a part of an NFL football team or even, a college team like Dennard has that's playing some high-level FCS football, then you are no friend of mine, buddy, pal, guy.
I would simply just go for it on every fourth down.
Simply go for it.
So, yeah, I guess is that all we got then before the interview?
That's all we got. Let's see what these DBs can do in Washington. I'll be there. If any of our listeners are there, I'll be in one of those big fat tailgating lots, one of the ones that's right looking at the words FedEx.
Let me ask you this question. Will you be wearing a Ravens or a Washington football team jersey?
I'll be wearing my Patrick Ricard jersey that Francesca got me for my birthday.
Okay, so it came. Good.
Oh, it came. It's already been worn, and that's what I'll be wearing. I'll be wearing my Lamar Jackson purple bucket hat. Easy to find, and I'll be wearing my Pat Ricard jersey, and that's going to be my deadly combo for this season. So if you're going to be there, hit me up, have a beer, whatever. I'll be there.
I would have been in that same vein. I will not be going because the Ragazzi and I will actually be at Caves Valley on Saturday. So anyone out at the BMW this weekend, if you're out there on Saturday, come say what's up. I'm sure I'll be roaming the grounds. If you've got nothing else going on that day, or on Sunday. Sunday's probably going to be a shit show, so maybe not, but get out to Caves and support the BMW, support the PGA Tour coming here, because it's a little bit of an audition of sorts. So if we can show support for that kind of thing, it would be just great for everyone involved, and great for an area that I think has been starved for this kind of thing. So get out to Caves, say what's up if you're out there. If you are going to the WFT game instead, say hello to this beautiful man, and let's have ourselves a good sporting weekend.
Let's duet. Without further ado, let's kick it on over to Mr. Dennard Melton of the Fire Zone Show. See ya.
Arrivederci. All right. We now welcome on a very special guest, someone hopping on to do a little bit of a chat with us, not probably into our typical interviews, but kind of a little bit more of a discussion maybe about what we've seen so far from the Ravens in the preseason, what we've seen out of the defense more specifically. I think it's Dennard Melton of the Fire Zone Show, and just a general great follow on Twitter. Hi, man.
What's going on, gentlemen? How are you guys doing?
We are doing okay. And
good.
Yeah, I think we're off to a good rapport here. We were just joking about if anyone's watching on YouTube, they can see your Sonic the Hedgehog shirt, which I think we're both a big fan of. So the vibes are off to a good start here. But to keep that rolling, I guess, how about you go ahead and give our listeners the Dennard elevator pitch? What is with football? What makes you sort of the guru on the defensive side of the ball that we're going to be picking the brain up tonight?
Well, I don't know about guru, first off, but
that's how you know you're a guru. You know someone's smart if they say, I'm not that smart.
That's like George Washington trying the presidency, but then actually getting it. It's kind of like a fake humble move, but actually, like, I actually am the guru.
Well, he knew what he was doing, so let's good deal. So obviously I've loved football all my life, but actually my first love was basketball. And then as I got into high school, I started playing football. First year, freshman, didn't know what I was doing. Next thing I know, all over the place doing all the things in high school. And once I kind of got into college, went to Navy Prep, went to James Madison. Once I got to James Madison, fell in love with defense. Had really two awesome coaches, Dick Hopkins, Kyle Gillenwater. Really sat down and showed me the ins and outs, the calls, how defenses need to be built, what offenses, are attacking you, how they're attacking you, why they're attacking you, what motions do. So I'm the type of guy who will go deeper into those things. So I feel like defense is one of those things where you have to be so flexible, but yet so determined at the same time. And it just so much intrigued me. So obviously I've followed football all my life. I coached high school football for 5 years, was a defensive coordinator for 4 years there. So understand game plans, putting them together, scouting, all that good stuff. Always pride myself on any defense I ever coach is if we can keep the opponent under 17 points, I've done my job and I can go home and smile.
Offense, so, we just need 3 scores, buddy. Come on, offensive side. We just need 3 scores.
I just need 20 points. I need 20 points. Just give me 20, and I'll make it happen.
It really is.
I think Ray Lewis said that about in the 2000 team. They have Jamal, Shannon, and whoever else touch it. We're not going to allow anything more than 17. So that's a great callback.
Yeah, absolutely. It's every defense's mantra is, you're going to give up plays. You're going to do things that are not going to be healthy. You're going to make bad calls, but you want to minimize them as much as possible, because on defense, one mistake is 7 points. Mistake on offense, you might lose 2 yards. Big difference.
Big difference. So getting into let's go base level. Let's go all the way down to the minuscule level. And talking front seven play specifically, obviously coverage dictates things and all that good stuff. But what would you say are the 3 or 2 main jobs of a linebacker before the play starts? And it depends on your call and all that good stuff. But where are your eyes and who are you talking to and why? And let's go JV, let's go Pee Wee, let's go all the way down. You're on the field. Offense is on the field. Where are you starting?
Count your players. Know the call. First 2 things. Because if you don't have 11 in the huddle, good luck. And then knowing what the call is. And I think that's one of the biggest things is not only understanding the call that's coming in, but how it applies. And even as a JV kid, even as a high school kid, you just don't want to keep saying things out loud. You want to know why the play call is coming in. So if you're in tune in practice and you're listening to your coach when you're not supposed to be listening to your coach, you'll learn those things. So as a linebacker, you kind of want to, first things first, count your players. Second thing is know the call. And then the third and most important thing is make sure everyone gets the call and they're lined up. And if you're not doing those 3 things, you're not doing your job. Yeah, you're not doing your job.
Hey, big fella, scoot down a gap. There we go.
Yep. Kick over, line slide down. Strength is wrong. Secondary, your rotation, everybody's on the same page, because formation will tell you everything. There's a motion coming. If there's some type of wrinkle that you've been told throughout the week that if you see this formation, you know what's coming. So now you're alerting everyone. So a lot's going on in your mind as a linebacker, and then you're doing all that in about 3 seconds. And oh, by the way, you have a huge job to make sure that you make the play that you're supposed to if it comes your way. So that's why linebackers and quarterbacks, and they make the transition, even running backs, it's easier to make the transition because you're already in essence smart, because you got to know formations. You got to know what hole to run into. You got to know how to set someone up. So when you come over to the defensive side, it's kind of the same mindset. Like, how do you do this? How do you do that? How you set people up? So it's a lot that goes into it. Real quick.
What is the difference between linebacker play in 2021 versus 2001?
Physicality. I think linebackers have gotten smaller because of the college game. And that's not a bad thing, but I think a lot of big safeties got moved down to linebacker in college.
Dwan Landry wasn't playing any safety in 2021.
No, I mean, Brian Urlacher is a kind of a good example of that. He went from safety at New Mexico, came down and played linebacker, but he was a bigger guy, so it kind of worked. If you think of guys that have come down who were safeties who are now kind of stuck in the linebacker spot, maybe the guy Murray,
right,
from Oklahoma. He was probably a safety in high school, probably a safety when he showed up at Oklahoma State.
Running back and a safety, probably.
Yep, showed up at Oklahoma as a safety, and somebody said you were fast and could make plays. Okay. Put him at linebacker, especially in a wide open Big 12. That works. But that's not going to translate into the NFL, especially as teams have evolved over the last 5 years of not being so spread out and trying to throw and do those things. They're trying to be more unique in their routes and trying to do more rubs and things of that sort. Excuse me. So, yeah, a lot of that stuff is – you got to be aware. You got to be there and paying attention.
Of course. And getting into those calls, Can you take us through linebacker calls and how maybe a 50 call or something will tell a linebacker where they need to fill and how to fill the run and how you can kind of coach that through and get that ticking through a linebacker's head when you're coaching them and what you want to see in terms of that? And I know that's a very broad question, but when you're playing a team, especially more towards high school level, again, a lot of teams are running the ball, you know, they got buck sweep, power, and a counter, and a couple pass plays, and that's what they got. When you're calling in plays, a 50 or whatever it is, how are you getting these guys to fit the run? And what's kind of the difference between two high and single high in how guys are fitting the run?
So getting to the basics. So it depends on your call. Like it could be a 4. We'll just keep it basic. So we won't call it 50. We'll call it 4-3-3-4. Kind of keep everybody's mind. So 4 down linebackers, 3 linebackers. In the essence of a 4-3, when you are filling the run with 7 guys in the box, too high. Everything is, I always taught it as inside out as a linebacker because you want to spill everything. You don't want a running back going north and south, just like a punt returner. You don't want them going north and south. You want them to stop their feet. Same thing as a running back, same thing as an offensive lineman. So linebacker, you're going to, if you are in the A gap, strong A gap, plays going to the tight end to your right, you need to be inside out of the running back as well as your lineman. So you've got to see through your lineman to your next read. Now, the best way to explain this as a linebacker is you have to see all 3 steps. You have to see the lineman, the quarterback, the running back in that progression. A great saying that a linebacker coach told me is running backs lie, just like fill in the blank.
If you're looking there first, they're going to get you. They're a better athlete, and they're going to get you.
Well, they lie. They just lie. They lie. They're window dressing. They're the prom date that never showed up. They're
stepping left to go right to go left.
Right.
They're opening one way to go the other.
Yep. If they're going right and the linemen are going left, that ball is nowhere going anywhere near them. So that's why you have to read your progression. You have to read the linemen. And 9 times out of 10, the linemen are going to tell you what the play is. They're either taking a lateral step to do a zone. The center's either blocking back, block back. You got the guard pull, or the pass setting. There's really not a lot more that can happen in terms of offensive line sets that can kind of screw you up. Now they can throw some counters and screens, but that's more reaction. As a defensive coordinator, you're not really planning on counters per se. Now, if they run a bulk of them, yeah, you're going to prepare for it. You're going to, have calls in place as linebacker, things along that sort. But most times or not, it's downhill. It's physical. It's how Wink has been talking. Is how Rob Ryan's been talking. Go 100 miles an hour and go hit somebody in the face. We can fix anything else if you're going 100 miles an hour. If you're not going 100 miles an hour downhill in the run game, you're in trouble. Plain and simple.
I'm kind of curious about this for my own purposes because I've been diving into reading some stuff from people that are a lot smarter than me, and I'm much more of a layman with a lot of this stuff, particularly defense. How would you kind of explain the concepts of checks and alerts on the defensive side of the ball when things get going and how that applies to linebackers?
In terms of linebackers, checks are more for everyone else. So you're now occasionally our responsibilities may change in terms of coverage or blitz or things of that sort. But a lot of the changes that happen are mainly in the secondary. So that's where the communication has to be top notch. It has to be checks have to be on the same page. Calls have to be on the same page. Motions, everyone's got to be alert. Everyone's got to be paying attention. Everybody's be talking. As a linebacker, you've got combo calls, you've got banjo calls, you've got double calls, however you want to call it, 2-on-1s, 3-on-2s, 4-on-3s. And what I mean by that, if you've got a running back, tight end, and a receiver. And we've got a man blitz call, or we've got some type of call where we're in man coverage. And I'm the linebacker, and I got a safety and another linebacker per se. So we've got to cover all three of those guys, and I've got two linebackers, a safety, and a safety. So in college, we used to call that a banjo call. So in essence, whoever the defensive guy who's the furthest outside would take the first guy on the outside cut. Now, hopefully that's not a receiver and a linebacker, but sometimes that stuff happens, and you see that in game film all the time, which is why, as defensive coaches, we go nuts when we have to call blitzes, because we lose a lot of control. When you blitz, you end up with
Devontae Smith on Pete Werner.
Yes. You don't want Patrick Queen on a wheel ride on Juju Smith. I think we've seen that once too many times already. But it happens.
Or even James White.
Yes. And sometimes it just happens because the offense has aligned in a way that forces the defense that has to react. And in those moments, as a defensive player, just get them on the ground. Live to the next play.
Lose the battle to win the war. And
yep.
Of course, linebackers are kind of like, a lot of times, just because of location on the field, they end up being kind of like the cell phone tower between a bunch of people with cell phones.
Mm-hmm.
And in that sense, they got to connect. You got to connect your front to your back, your left to your right, and all that good stuff. So talking about Patrick Queen, talking about Malik Harrison, and just kind of segueing into some of these basic things, and you put it very eloquently, there's really three things an offensive lineman can do. And Patrick Queen, a gentleman who comes in, 1 year starting experience, athletic as all hell, fast as can be, tough, flashes all the time. Where did you see him grow last year, and where did you see him win last year, as John Harbaugh likes to say? You either learn or you win, as I think he likes to put it.
Right.
So I think that New England Patriots game was a lot of learning for Mr. Queen. And where do you see areas that are going to make a jump in year two, and what are maybe some of his limitations versus things that will come with time?
So I would say he got baptized in the Kansas City game.
Yeah, that's true. That was his baptism by fire.
He saw so many screens.
I think we all got baptized with that game.
Yeah, he saw so many screens. He probably saw screens for the next 3 weeks in his dreams. Like, I've been there as a linebacker. We played, before we get into that, we played Brian Westbrook at Villanova.
Ooh, that was a bad man.
Freshman. Bad man. Bad man. So I'll make it short, but he scored 5 touchdowns in the game. Sure. He was running all over the place, but I was the will linebacker. I was a weak side linebacker in that game. And we had a lot of spy stuff in the game in turns because they ran a ton of screens. And they also had this really nice receiver, number 2. I don't remember his name, but he was just as good. And they ran a ton of screens, and they ran a lot of screens to him. Let's just say you get Brian Westbrook in space. In college, in particular, good night. So one time he caught a swing, or it was a draw or something. And I saw it. And just as I saw it, he was gone. So
by the time that piggy touched his glove,
he was already 4 steps by me. So I just felt like I needed to tell that story because of
some guys are just playing a different game in college.
Yes, and they're just playing a different game.
Some guys are 22 years old, and some guys are 17, 18, 19.
Yes, and sometimes they're 29, and they're just that good. But anyway, getting back to Queen, what I saw last year was a guy who obviously did not have training camp. I saw a guy who also only started 1 year, really a half a year in college. So when he came in, I knew he could play, but I also knew he was going to struggle because as a linebacker, it's all about reps. It's all about seeing things. It's seeing it over and over again because
you got 3 seconds, like you said. You got 3 seconds.
You got 3 seconds, and at that point, you need to recognize. You got to pay attention. You got to be on your things, but it's got to be second nature. When that's, when they do a zone block, boom, I got this. And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, let me just check, make sure the guard's not being late, because then I know it's going to be boot. So I got to get, just those things as you see it more and more. And you saw him, I would say after the COVID Pittsburgh game, he got better because he started to slow down. He started seeing things. And what I've already noticed this year is quiet mind means quiet feet. And his feet have been very quiet for the most part. As linebackers, we get a little giddy sometimes when blitzes come, when line stunts come. He'll get out of that stuff. And then the one play actually that you did on Twitter was a perfect example of false steps and being a little too excited. Because if he waits just as 64 clears, there's going to be an alley for him if he wasn't right. If he wasn't in a bad angle, now he's got to scrape. Now the guard's got a better angle, and the guard's just going to ride him out. If he would have been patient, he could have hit the guard right in the mouth, and that'd have been a 2-yard gain, and Harrison would have cleaned up. So it's just those little things that will come with time. I think he's going to be great. I think his feet have slowed down. He's going to be physical. I think Malik Harrison really rubs off on him very much so in that term.
Especially when you're just watching him, Malik Harrison hit every game you're watching him hit. And Malik Harrison's feet are too quiet at times. So it's kind of that yin and that yang where Malik Harrison is, taking one step out of the gate instead of, getting downhill in a hurry and closing space. I feel like his depth is a tell on what he's going to do a lot of the time.
I will say this. Go ahead.
Yeah, what I would say in the comparison, I was going to make this as my next question anyway, so I might as well just jump into it. It's like when the starting quarterback is struggling, everyone loves the backup quarterback. And there was definitely a groundswell of people saying, oh, Malik Harrison, actually the better linebacker here. Like I know that because Patrick Queen got posterized on a couple of plays. So what's the Malik Harrison prospectus as we enter 20, I guess, jumping into him now?
So I will say this about Malik Harrison. He plays a little bit like me, and I hope he takes this a little bit as a compliment. But I was talking to my friend Mike earlier, Mike Crawford. You probably guys know him.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he kind of asked me the question, and I was like, he's a guesser, but not a guesser. And as a linebacker, sometimes you get in your own head because you see something, well, I've seen film. I've seen this. And your mind kind of tricks you.
And then you stop reading your keys.
For a split second, your eyes go in the backfield. Your eyes look at the quarterback. Or it does something it's not supposed to be doing. And then all of a sudden, you're like, oh, man, I got to go. And I think Malik Harrison has a little bit of that, but he makes up with it with such physical point of attack that you're okay with it.
If he has to chase, if he goes into flight mode, he's gonna make it a mess.
Yes,
he's gonna make something a mess.
He's gonna hit it 100 miles an hour, and it's probably gonna be body parts laying somewhere. I mean, you saw the Titans game. He single-handedly, him and McPhee destroyed everything on the strong side. Everything. And that's what you need.
And then, like you said earlier, guess what? Running backs' feet stop.
Yep.
And that's how
they don't know where to. And you saw Derrick Henry. It was two different Derrick Henrys. 2019, I don't even think he ever downshifted. I think he was in fourth gear the whole game. In 2020, he was stopping his feet. He was trying to cut. He was kind of, you can tell when zone running backs get a little, they're not sure.
They don't love it. They don't love what they're seeing.
Well, they start pitter-patting.
Yeah.
They start pitter-patting their feet when they get to the line of scrimmage. They start
Paul Lewis post-ankle.
Yes. And they start kind of tap-dancing. That's why a lot of those zone running backs end up going away very quickly because they get offensive linemen who are always in their face, so their running
Gets
style
their psyche.
Yep. That's why Arian Foster was so good. He didn't care. He was going off.
He was going to kill a wolf with his bare hands.
Yes, he was going off C tackle. And if you met him at the gate, okay. But if not, he was going to be 88 not the gate. So that's what I'm a huge Adrian Foster fan. I thought he was probably one of the top 10 running backs.
I didn't know anything. I think I was freaking 14 years old. I don't know a damn thing. I'm playing JV football. I'm like, this dude at Tennessee is a freak. He doesn't get drafted. I'm like, well, yep, I'm an idiot. Nope, 1,500 yards. Him and Steve Slayton.
He was he was everything Greg Kubiak wanted in a zone type running back. He was
a mindless shark.
Oh, he was patient. He would press. And then when he saw it, 1 foot in the ground, it was
killer instinct.
Yes,
Le'Veon Bell, I always called him.
Le'Veon Bell just improved the style.
Yeah.
Right.
He was the great hesitator.
Right. So
those are horrible running backs to play against, by the way, as a linebacker. Le'Veon Bell is probably – that's why the Ravens struggle so much, because when you play running backs like that, it makes you hesitate because you got to wait. And we hate to wait as linebackers.
Because then your feet are flat and you got to hit something bigger than you off of flat feet.
There you go. On point.
Bingo. So talking about this Ravens defense fronts-wise, and what the Ravens did a great – we talk about that Titans game. What the Ravens did a great job of was mixing up their fronts so that they could crash that strong side like you were saying. So where are you seeing these young linebackers, and even talking about LJ Ford, a guy who's been so on point and calm and, reading his keys, doing his right job. Terrible, terrible loss for the Ravens. Love LJ Ford. But where are you seeing these fronts and how these linebackers are responding to different fronts throughout the first year they put on tape?
In terms of
under, and their ability to accurately do their job front-wise, depending on how the Ravens are lining up.
Oh, I didn't have any issues with them lining up. I believe it's funny when people say that the Ravens defense is complicated. It's really only complicated in the back end.
Right. Back
end.
Because
they run a lot of man type, zone type, amoeba type, coverages. Everybody's got to be organically paying attention. So that's really what their issue is back there. So front wise, it's not complicated because everyone kind of runs similar type stuff in terms of gap exchanges, blitzes, and things along those sort. It's more terminology and more understanding what the concept of what the front is trying to accomplish. Are they trying to just, if they're slanting left, are they slanting left or are they slanting getting up the field? And that kind of it's kind of dictated by the call. Yeah. Are we playing a zone team where we're just slanting so we can just build a wall? Or are we playing a power team where we're slanting and getting up the field because we need to disrupt the timing of the guard pulling or any kind of counter tray action or any counter action that might be coming across that we see?
I've always been fascinated by the role of the outside linebacker in Wink's defense. I feel like it feels maybe a little bit more unconventional in just a few years that he's been helming the defense here. How would you kind of describe the outside linebacker's role in this defense?
Just look at turnover. There's been one guy they've re-signed an outside linebacker probably since they've been in Baltimore.
Yeah.
Who's the other signed contract besides Suggs? And they kept him on
Bowser now.
Was a franchise tag for 2 years. So I mean,
Bowser, Judon, they tagged Judon once, so they didn't.
And Bowser's really not a second contract, and he really wasn't an outside linebacker because he was an inside linebacker in Houston. And anyway, the outside linebacker position in Baltimore is you've got to be everything. And I think that's why a lot of guys just run out of here when they get their time for payday, because not only do you have to be the man against the run, you got to dig out the guards. You got to do a lot of the dirty work in the run, especially in a 3-4.
Squeeze pullers.
Yes. Outside linebacker is everything that a DN is in the 4-3. Just got to be just grungy, dirty, physical, do everything that is wrong with the
Stick your face mask through an MF's chest.
You're covering up all the mistakes, not in terms of like covering people's mistakes, but the 3-4 kind of has some little hidden weaknesses. Weak A, strong C. Kind of those things. That's why Suggs was so good, because they gave Suggs such the leeway to jump stuff inside and do those things, which drove me insane with Judon because he was terrible at it. But that's just another.
He was reckless. Suggs was calculated. Judon was reckless.
Reckless, and most likely was dead wrong 9 times out of 10 when he did.
And then Patrick Mahomes is by himself, 20 yards on the right sideline.
Throwing back across his face, no-look passes for 60 yards, beating Weddle on a post. We won't go down there.
We won't go there.
In coverage against Tyreek Hill, which is
right. So I think that's why they're so excited about Owen and Haynes, because they're different than anything else that's ever come through the door since Suggs. I mean, you line up anyone else they've drafted between now and then, no one ever really matches up with the ability to drop in coverage, who can play the run physically,
and
do a decent job in a pass rush. Now, let's remember, you don't need a lot of production in terms of sacks from the outside linebackers. You need them more to contain it because our secondary is so good.
They're built back in front.
Yeah. So you because your secondary is so good, you know you're going to get a lot of quick routes. So that's why you've seen kind of the change in type of bodies you see up front with the Ravens. Long, tall, physical. You've got Campbell, you got Owen, you've got Justin, you've got Washington, Wolf, long, physical guys who can put their arms up and
clog the lane.
And deal with an issue that was a problem for the Ravens, which was a quick passing game, because as a 3-4 team, you only have 2 guys in the middle of the field at the start of a play. Now, you can drop a safety down, and that's great, but then you lose to something on the back end. So that's why I've always been a 4-3 guy, because now I have 3 linebackers to cover the middle of the field. It's an extra pair of arms, there's an extra lane there, and it causes issues. But then again, you don't have the flexibility to do what you want in terms of scheme, blitzing, moving things around, because you're a little
conservative,
stagnant, because you can only really rotate your safeties and maybe your linebackers.
And plus, they're playing nickel just as much as they're playing anything else.
Right.
So at the end of the day, you've got those 2 guys, and sometimes that safety, that dime backer, all that good stuff, which is why Chuck Clark is such an impressive player that doesn't get any respect, because the man can go shed on a tackle and make a play against the run at 200 pounds. And then, of course, is going to end up matched up on tight ends, doing all this stuff, wearing the dot, doing all these great things. So it's definitely work in progress. But like you say, I feel like in the entire NFL, outside linebacker wise, and there might be someone I'm missing, but I always like to say it's Miami with Brian Flores. It's New England with Bill Belichick's defense, which is no surprise why Matt Judon was paid money and signed there. And then Baltimore, where you're asking your outside linebackers to be able to crash against pullers, set the edge, drop into coverage, and run.
Yes.
And those are unique responsibilities for any football player. It's kind of like a tight end almost, where you've got to be able to hit. A tight end's got to be able to block somebody bigger and stronger, outrun a DB that's faster and quicker, and also be able to help out in just being a knowledgeable player and technique wise. So I feel like kind of like a tight end almost. And look at Odafe Owe. He's got kind of a tight end body, 6'5", longer guy. You know, he's not doesn't have a lot of bad mass on him in any way, shape, or form. Kind of like looking at, you know, a Kyle Pitts, not quite as tall and long as him and a little bit bigger, but yeah, it's an interesting body type the Ravens have. So where do you see all these young players, all these ancillary pieces on the Ravens this year? How much of a difference do you think we're going to see in week 1 versus when we're talking in December for Dalen Hayes, Odafe Owe, Patrick Queen, Malik Harrison, all these younger guys, and how much you think they might be able to grow this year? And is it going to be good enough?
Is it going to be good enough?
Bowser as well is stepping into a full-time role for the first time.
Yes. I think it's going to be enough. My two worries in terms of, well, we'll start with the young guys. I think Queen and Harrison are going to play well. I would like Fort to be in the room on a week-to-week basis in terms of continuing that growth, continuing to talk to them and understand what they're seeing. I hope he's still in that room doing that. Now they may bring in someone. I floated the idea of having them bring in another vet that can kind of in that Darryl Smith type that may not be a starter, but doesn't mind the Fort type of mentorship.
Josh Bond.
Who can step in. Yeah, can step in for 3 games if someone goes down and you're not worrying about the run. That's always my issue as a defensive coordinator. If I lose my linebacker, I don't really care about the pass because that's not going to kill me. I can get that on the ground. What's going to wear me out and wear my team out is them going 7 yards a clip, 6 yards a clip, 5 yards a clip for a whole game.
And
that's what's going to
then you have
wear
to
me
dedicate that 8th player in the box.
And I'm okay with that because then I can figure out some things, maybe get myself out of jams, maybe I have to give up 26 points. But guess what? I'm going to need my offense to step up for a few weeks. Kind of that give and take that you look for, kind of that balance. But going back to the young guys defensively, I think, like I said, with Queen and Harrison, I think they're going to be good. I think they're going to take care of the stuff. I think a lot of the rookies are going to take their time getting here. I think the Ravens did a great job in bringing in veteran-type guys like Houston. They've already got secondary guys in place who can take the load off of a Stevens and a Wade and let them grow and do what they need to do to become better football players. I don't need them to be great in week 1. I need them fresh and ready around week 11 and really start to get into a groove at that point because that's when I'm going to need those rookies. I'm going to need those guys to step up because my horses, my Campbells, my Wolves, my Houstons, they're going to get me through the first 2/3 of the season. Where I need my rookies, I need you guys on the back end to give those veterans a rest, cut their snaps down as we get ready for the playoff. Especially now we're playing 17 games. I wouldn't be surprised if some guys just rotate out for a game just because. And you have to be strategic.
You got to lick your wounds sometimes so you can be healthy come December, come January.
Maybe, this week we have Wolf down against a team that's going to be pass happy. We don't need the extra run stuff for today. That's his week off.
Yep.
And then maybe Campbell gets a week off against a team that you should do well against without him. So you're going to have to be strategic about these things as we go through the season. And I think that's where the young guys, as they grow, will hopefully supplement these guys going forward and give them what they need and take the reps that they don't need going down the season so they're ready for the playoffs. And then those rookies may be stars in the playoffs or they may be very good role pieces where you can roll out some plays for them or have a package for Brandon Stevens as he's the high safeties, and now you can drop Deshaun Elliott in the box with the Chuck Clark in a nickel package, and now you're probably have one of your fastest teams on the field with a Harrison and a Queen and all these secondary guys that you spent so much money for, you want to get on the field. So, there's a lot of different things that are coming, with this defense. Do they have enough? I really need to see how the pass rush is in terms of not just sacks. I don't care about sacks. I think sacks are the most overrated thing. They do their job. I need disruption. I need
quarterbacks leaving pockets.
I need that. I need running backs stopping their feet. I need linemen missing blocks. Those are the type of things that a defensive coordinator I'm loving, because that means I've got them on the run. If I'm getting sacks, that is a sticky situation, because you can have 7-8 sacks, but also give up 500 yards. So I just want to see what I saw last year in the Indianapolis game when they were shorthanded and they sat in zone pretty much that whole game and got a 4-man rush and got consistent pressure the whole game. And I like to see that against a Kansas City. I would like to see that against a Raider team that we're going to see in week 1, who are just going to throw the ball around a little bit more. So I want to see those things. And if those things are there, then I'm not worried about the pass rush at the end of the year, because when it comes playoff time, if Houston's healthy, if Campbell's actually healthy, if Wolf is healthy enough, I think they can get a 4-man rush with those guys in the playoffs. I need to see consistency throughout the entire year.
And that's probably a little bit of a broad conversation. So for my last one, I'll give you a broad question. Is there in your opinion, do you think in X amount of months, whatever it's going to be, we're talking about the Ravens having any amount of Pro Bowlers, or even maybe, let's say, an All-Pro in this linebacker group, in your opinion?
Are we including outside linebackers?
Yes.
Sure. Okay. If I was a betting man, I would say Bowser would be the one I would be most confident in being All-Pro, being in the Pro Bowl as a linebacker, and I think Queen would be a close second. I think the world of Bowser. I think he changes this defense in a way where they become so unpredictable in how they can line up, because he's so multifaceted and he's so good in dropping in coverage.
His spot drops are out of a freaking computer simulation. Like,
oh my goodness. And his hands and his ability, his ball reaction, everything, he's got All-Pro written all over him. And I'm just wondering how they're going to let him loose. Are they just going to make him a true outside linebacker and just go, and then drop? Or are they just going to mix him around, throw him into the middle of a blitz package, throw him outside sometimes, maybe move him on the other side? Like, is he going to be that Suggs piece where they can just move him up and down the line?
Find a weakness and attack it. Plus, he is such a rare player right now, because the Sam, especially because, we talked about how nickel is the most, probably the most predominant. For most teams, it's the most predominant package that you have. And that's because of 11 personnel right now being so popular. So we've seen the Sam in the traditional sense dying, but he flirts the line between Sam and nickel almost, with how well he can cover underneath, especially when he's able to, picking up. We watched him pick up Kareem Hunt last year on a route. Kareem Hunt gave him a little speed out. Tyus Bowser, his feet are no wasted movement, jumps across his face, undercuts it, swats that thing out of bounds. That's a 250 pound, 6'3" outside linebacker who can beat up on a tight end as a pass rusher, covering Kareem Hunt in space. And that is not a player that exists in many forms throughout this league. There's not a player like that. There's not a lot of guys.
No, very rare. And with him and Queen and Harrison all locked up for the next 3 years, tell me a young linebacker group that would trump that.
And with speed, you can throw away in there even. and you know they're going to have Oweh dropping. Just talking from a speed and athleticism standpoint, that group can move, they can hit. The knowledge of the game, the reps will come, all that good stuff.
Yeah.
Are they going to be perfect this year? No, they're absolutely not going to be. Is Bowser going to be the most consistent? Probably, because he's a vet now. So looking around this entire group, there's speed left and right. And that's why I think the Ravens do have a sneaky chance to maybe give Mahomes a little bit more trouble than they did last year because of raw speed that you can use. You can play a calmer style as a pass rush. You don't have to push the issue. And if he wants to run, guess what? You can run and chase and get him to the ground potentially. So,
absolutely. I think that the motto has to be, and I think you kind of saw it in the Super Bowl, but if you think back to when Belichick had to play the Rams the first time in 2001, it's kind of that same mindset is Mahomes is going to complete passes. Guess what? Humphrey, smack him. Peters, smack him. Elliott, smack him. Stevens, smack him. 4-yard gain, smack him. Keep him in the pocket. Make them go 85 yards at 6, 7, 10-yard a clip and make them work. And that's the goal. You're not going to stop a team like that. You have to make them go 10, 12, 13 plays and make them have to beat you. Actually beat you with actual execution. And you'd be surprised how hard that is for an NFL team to literally execute on every single play if you're in a basic defense the entire day. And Belichick will do that to you. And he's very successful in making sure that.
That's what the Bills did to Mahomes in the AFC Championship game. And guess what? He picked them apart. And sometimes he can do it. I think they had one completion over 15 air yards that game.
Yes. Now, not every team is built to be able to do that. And Buffalo's not built to play a team like Kansas City in that way. And it's going to be interesting because I love Buffalo. I love their defense. I love Leslie Frazier. I love everything they do. But Buffalo's a little slow. And that's an issue. They're slow up front. They're decently speed-wise at linebacker. They're great at one corner, but they're solid in the secondary. That's not going to beat a team like Kansas City because they've got Hardeman. They've got these guys. They run screens. They're doing this the whole time. If you don't have team speed and teams are going like this with you, you're just as good as just standing there as a statue. I mean, you ain't going to do anything.
When you're worried laterally, you're getting beat vertically.
Yeah, and that's the problem. And I think that's the mindset you've seen the Ravens take on since the Lamar draft, which is speed. And, oh, by the way, I need you to be a football smart guy. I don't need talented guys. I need speed guys and football smart. If I got those two things, we can go play this new brand of physical, fast, defensive football that we've seen in the preseason. I don't think people have realized this is different than typical Raven defensive teams that we've seen over the last 5 years.
They used to trot out 2 nose tackles in Pierce and Williams,
C.J.
Mosley, Eric Weddle, and Tony Jefferson.
They tried out one of the slowest football teams on defense probably over the last 5 years. And no disrespect to Eric Weddle, Tony Jefferson, Mosley, Peanut,
Pierce, Williams, Brent Urban, Zadarius Smith, Terrell Suggs. Those guys are not – their forte is not how much ground they can cover, how quickly they can cover it. None of them.
None of them. And the Ravens recognized that at the end of the Flacco years, and they understood that they had to get faster on defense. They had to get faster on offense because you couldn't just drop back 5 steps and just throw it up there in the air and hope that you complete 2 or 3 of these balls that get you in Tucker's range and maybe you get a defensive score and there's your 25 points. Can't do that stuff anymore. So as teams in the NFL have gone horizontal, the Ravens, and I feel like they're one of the only teams that have gotten faster on defense. I feel like a lot of teams have kind of weirdly gone to this kind of like plot and play defense. Like they just throw guys out there and they're like,
cover this area. Stay in this area.
Stay in this area. We don't want to get beat too bad. Like we're just trying to hold
but don't break.
Yeah. And the Ravens were like that. And you saw
that was Dean Pease' whole defensive identity.
I mean, we saw what happened against Cincinnati day in and day out, and heartbreak and everything of the sort. But those types of situations don't need to be that way if you are where they are now, which is they're not overly aggressive. Yes, last year they blitzed 44% of the time. I think that was a number.
Somewhere right around there.
I don't think they're going to be above 30. I would dare to say they won't be above 33%. I would say they might be even lower.
Wow.
And I'm not saying it won't look like them blitzing. I think
they're still sending 4, but they're overloading pressure on one side.
I think you're going to see, because they have Houston. Now they have Campbell. They have Owe. They have Bowser. Now you've got guys where you can have fun. You can bring them from everywhere. You can bring
Queen.
4.
I mean, Queen is a hell of a blitzer, man. That's probably if you got to hang your hat on one thing Patrick Queen does, it is beat running backs in pass protection with finesse, with power, with savvy, with all of it. And we've seen that several times already. And guess who kind of does that as well is Devin White down in Tampa, who didn't have the most polished start to his first couple of seasons there. So,
but he's a man now.
He is a man now. So that's obviously what everybody's hoping. That's what Eric DeCosta, that's what Wink Martindale are hoping Patrick Queen can turn into. But I think that's about all we got for you, Dennard. This was a lot of fun. Thank you so much for coming on with us. We appreciate the knowledge. We appreciate the laughs. We appreciate the fun. Hopefully we can get you on here sometime on couple months in, couple weeks in, talk about these linebackers, this defensive front again, and kind of what we're seeing and where to expect them at the end of the year. So that would be a lot of fun. Thanks, buddy.
Absolutely, guys.
Make sure to plug yourself, tell the people where to find you, your podcast, all that good stuff before you get out of here.
Awesome. So I'm at the Fire Zone show. I tape probably on Thursdays right now. During the season, we're probably going to do different shows. So please look out for us. Probably a post and pregame work week every week, just because I enjoy talking defense. So by all means, guys, reach out. I love to answer any questions you might have through the season. Even if this is a quick spot, 5 minutes, no problem.
Hell yeah. Thanks, buddy. Have a good night, okay?
All right, man. Take care, guys.
Thanks,
Bye.
Dennard.
Gorlami.
Arrivederci.
Arrivederci. Arrivederci.
Arrivederci.